It was a moment that could have gone unnoticed. A fleeting interaction on a crowded street. A homeless man, wearing tattered clothes and carrying the weariness of the world in his eyes, extended his hand to Johnny Depp. "Can you give me $1?" he asked, his voice a quiet plea amidst the city's noise. What happened next wasn't just a response. It was a story that resonated across the globe, leaving people questioning their own capacity for kindness. The day began like any other in the heart of Los Angeles. The streets were alive with their usual chaos. Cars honking in impatient traffic, street performers vying for attention, and tourists snapping selfies with stars embedded in the Walk of Fame. Amid the bustle, the unnoticed made their way. Those who had no homes, no fixed destination, and no place in the fast-paced rhythm of the city. Johnny Depp, the Hollywood icon known for his transformative roles and enigmatic charm, walked unnoticed that day. He was dressed simply, wearing a black beanie pulled low over his signature dark glasses, and a leather jacket that had seen better days. He wasn't there for the cameras, the fans, or the glitz of Hollywood. He was simply out for a walk, seeking a rare moment of anonymity. In a quiet corner of a bustling intersection, a homeless man stood, his presence almost blending into the background. His clothes hung loosely from his thin frame, and his hands trembled slightly as he clutched a cardboard sign that read, "Anything helps." His name was Michael, a man who had once had a job, a family, and a home. Now he was just another face in a sea of struggles, unseen by most who walked by. Michael wasn't one to ask for help directly, but desperation had a way of breaking down pride. As Johnny approached, Michael gathered his courage. "Sir?" he began hesitantly, his voice barely audible over the hum of the city. "Can you spare $1?" Johnny paused, his body language betraying no immediate reaction. To Michael, he looked like just another passerby, a man who might either ignore him completely or offer a curt dismissal. What Michael didn't realize was that this moment had already caught Johnny's full attention. Johnny looked at Michael, not with pity, but with a quiet intensity. He noticed the deep lines etched into the man's face, the weariness in his posture, and the unspoken story behind his eyes. Instead of reaching for his wallet, Johnny asked softly, "Why just $1?" The question caught Michael off guard. He hesitated, unsure how to answer. I just need to get something to eat," he stammered, avoiding Johnny's gaze. His honesty was disarming, but the shame in his voice was palpable. Johnny didn't respond immediately. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out not just $1, but a crisp $100 bill. He handed it to Michael, whose eyes widened in disbelief. "This is too much," Michael stammered, holding the bill as if it might vanish. Johnny smiled, a hint of sadness in his expression. "Sometimes it's not about what you ask for, it's about what you need," he said. His words hung in the air, simple yet profound. But Johnny didn't stop there. He sat down on the curb beside Michael, ignoring the curious glances of passers-by. "Tell me your story," he said, his voice inviting but firm. Michael hesitated, unused to anyone showing interest in him as a person. Slowly, he began to speak. He told Johnny about the life he once had, a stable job in construction, a wife who loved him, and a son who looked up to him. Then came the accident that left him unable to work, the medical bills that piled up, and the eviction notice that arrived when they couldn't make rent. His wife took their son and left, unable to cope with the mounting pressure. Michael had been on the streets ever since, caught in a cycle of despair he couldn't escape. By the time Michael finished his story, his voice was trembling, and tears threatened to spill from his eyes. Johnny listened intently, his face a mixture of empathy and quiet resolve. "You've been through so much," Johnny said softly. "But you're still here. That says something." Reaching into his jacket again, Johnny pulled out a folded piece of paper and handed it to Michael. "This is the number of a friend of mine," he explained. "She runs an outreach program that helps people get back on their feet. Tell her I sent you." Michael stared at the paper, his hands shaking. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Johnny's answer was simple. "Because everyone deserves a second chance." Before Michael could respond, Johnny stood and extended his hand. "Come on," he said with a grin. "Let's get you that meal." Hollywood is often seen as a world of glitz, glamour, and detachment. Yet every so often, a story emerges that reminds us of the humanity behind the fame. Johnny Depp, a man known for his captivating performances and eccentric charm, is not just a Hollywood icon, but also a quiet force of kindness. From secretly helping strangers to lifting the spirits of terminally ill children, his random acts of generosity are as profound as they are heartwarming. These stories of compassion will not only restore your faith in humanity, but may also bring tears to your eyes. It was a chilly afternoon in Los Angeles, where the bustling streets of Hollywood Boulevard were alive with tourists, buskers, and the cacophony of urban life. In the midst of the chaos, Depp, dressed in his signature understated style of a leather jacket, ripped jeans, and tinted glasses, strolled into a local toy store. He was there not for a publicity stunt or a grand purchase, but on a deeply personal mission. He had heard about a 7-year-old boy named Jacob battling a rare form of leukemia, a child whose only joy in recent months had been playing with toy cars and figurines. Depp spent over an hour browsing the aisles, carefully selecting items he thought would bring Jacob the most happiness. He chatted warmly with the shopkeeper, asking for recommendations and sharing snippets of his plan to deliver the toys personally. As he left, carrying bags filled with action figures, model cars, and puzzles, the shopkeeper could only marvel at the lengths this Hollywood star was going for a boy he had never met. That evening, Jacob's family was stunned when a courier arrived with the toys, each wrapped with care, along with a handwritten note. "Dear Jacob, keep being the brave pirate that you are. Your friend, Johnny Depp." Depp's quiet acts of kindness have long been a hallmark of his life, often going unnoticed until someone else shares the story. One such instance unfolded in a small cafe in New Orleans, where he had gone to escape the prying eyes of Hollywood. Depp sat in a dimly lit corner, nursing a cup of black coffee while reading a book. Nearby, a young waitress, Clara, was speaking to her manager in hushed, distressed tones. Depp overheard just enough to understand her plight. She was behind on her rent and desperately asking for extra shifts to cover the mounting bills. Clara's voice trembled as she pleaded, "I just need a little more time." When Depp finished his coffee, he quietly slipped an envelope to the cafe owner. Inside was $3,000 in cash and a note. "This is for Clara. Don't tell her who it's from." Clara's reaction when her manager handed her the envelope was one of shock and gratitude. She never learned who her benefactor was, but the story eventually made its way back to Depp's fans, cementing his reputation as a man of extraordinary generosity. Johnny Depp's kindness isn't confined to quiet gestures. On the set of Pirates of the Caribbean, one of the crew members, Alan, suffered a devastating house fire that left his family homeless. Despite his stoic exterior, Alan's sorrow was evident to those who knew him. Word quickly spread among the cast and crew, and it wasn't long before Depp learned about Alan's situation. Rather than simply offering his condolences, Depp sprang into action. He discreetly coordinated with the producers and his co-stars to start a fundraiser for Alan. Depp contributed $50,000 himself and encouraged others to give what they could. By the end of the week, the crew had raised enough money to help Alan and his family rebuild their home. During a crew meeting, Depp handed Alan the check with a quiet smile. "This is from all of us," he said, deflecting attention from his own sizable contribution. Alan, overwhelmed, could only choke out a "thank you." Depp's response was simple. "We're a family here. We take care of our own." One of Depp's most famous acts of kindness occurred in London, where he visited Great Ormond Street Hospital, a facility renowned for treating critically ill children. Unlike many celebrity visits, Depp didn't just make a quick appearance. He arrived in full Captain Jack Sparrow regalia and spent the entire day interacting with the children, their families, and the hospital staff. One girl, Emily, had been battling a rare degenerative disease and hadn't smiled in weeks. When Depp entered her room, he immediately broke into character, stumbling around like the iconic pirate and cracking jokes. Emily's laughter was infectious, spreading to her parents and the nurses present. Depp spent nearly an hour with her, sharing stories about adventures on the high seas, and even teaching her a few pirate phrases. In another room, he sat with a boy named Liam, who had just undergone a difficult surgery. Depp held the boy's hand and whispered, "You're the bravest little pirate I've ever met." These moments, though fleeting, left a lasting impact on the children and their families. The hospital later reported that Depp's visit had lifted spirits in a way that medicine alone never could. The stories of Depp's kindness ripple far beyond these individual moments. From buying guitars for struggling musicians to funding community theater projects, his generosity knows no bounds. In interviews, Depp rarely talks about these acts, often brushing them off as just the right thing to do. But for the people whose lives he's touched, his actions are unforgettable. Years after his visit to Great Ormond Street Hospital, Emily's mother recounted how much it had meant to their family. "He didn't just make her laugh," she said, her voice breaking. "He gave her hope, and for us, that was priceless." Even Clara, the waitress from New Orleans, still remembers the mysterious benefactor who saved her from eviction. "I never found out who it was," she said. "But whoever they were, they reminded me that there's good in the world." Fame, fortune, and power can sometimes create an impenetrable barrier between celebrities and the rest of the world. But for also these five icons, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Shaquille O'Neal, Eminem, and Keanu Reeves, kindness is a value that transcends their success. These stories of their acts of compassion will not only leave you inspired, but might even bring you to tears. From giving struggling individuals a second chance to investing in entire communities, these five individuals show that even the biggest stars can shine brightest through their humanity. It was a frosty January morning in Manhattan, and the streets near Trump Tower bustled with their usual mix of hurried professionals, curious tourists, and street vendors calling out to passers-by. Outside the iconic skyscraper, a homeless man sat bundled in a threadbare coat, his cardboard sign propped against his knees. It read, "Vietnam veteran, please help." His face was lined with age and hardship, his hands trembling slightly as he held a styrofoam cup with a few coins inside. The man watched people rush by without sparing him a glance, their focus fixed on their own lives. Then, unexpectedly, a figure slowed down and stopped in front of him. Dressed in a long overcoat and flanked by two aides, Donald Trump crouched down to the man's level. Trump, who was on his way to an important meeting, was struck by the man's sign. "You're a veteran?" he asked, his tone softened by genuine concern. The man nodded, his voice barely audible. "Yes, sir. Vietnam. Lost my home a few years ago, just trying to get by." Trump didn't hesitate. He signaled to one of his aides to call for assistance. Moments later, the veteran was whisked into Trump Tower, where he was given a hot meal and offered a plan to help him find housing. Weeks later, the man spoke to local reporters saying, "Mr. Trump didn't just see me, he helped me when no one else would." Meanwhile, halfway across the country, Elon Musk was quietly transforming the life of a young girl named Sophie in rural Texas. Sophie, just 13 years old, had written a heartfelt letter to Musk detailing her dream of becoming an astronaut. She shared her challenges. Her parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, and her school lacked the resources to nurture her passion for science. Musk, deeply moved, decided to act. Within weeks, Sophie's school received a shipment of brand new laptops, advanced robotics kits, and science equipment, tools that could transform the school's outdated STEM program. But Musk didn't stop there. He arranged for Sophie and her family to visit SpaceX headquarters, where they toured the rocket assembly facility and met engineers who worked on the Falcon 9 and Starship projects. During their visit, Musk personally spent time with Sophie, answering her questions and encouraging her to never let circumstances dim her ambitions. "You're the future," he told her. "Dream big, work hard, and one day, you'll get there." Sophie's school also benefited from Musk's generosity, with the robotics program expanding to include dozens of students who never imagined such opportunities would come their way. Shaquille O'Neal, known for his larger-than-life personality both on and off the court, has made kindness a cornerstone of his life. One of his most heartwarming acts occurred during a routine visit to a Walmart in Atlanta. Shaq, who enjoys interacting with fans, overheard a conversation between a mother and her young son. The boy had found a pair of sneakers he loved, but the mother, visibly distressed, explained they couldn't afford them. Shaq approached the duo with a friendly smile and struck up a conversation. "How about we make sure you get those shoes today?" he said, his booming voice filled with warmth. But he didn't stop at the shoes. He invited the mother and son on a shopping spree, paying for clothes, school supplies, and groceries. When the mother, overwhelmed with gratitude, asked why he was doing this, Shaq simply replied, "Because someone once helped my family when we needed it, and now it's my turn to pay it forward." This wasn't an isolated incident. Shaq has become famous for these spontaneous acts of generosity, often paying off layaway balances at stores, buying engagement rings for couples who can't afford them, and even funding funerals for strangers. His motto? "If I can make someone smile, I've done my job." For Eminem, whose music often reflects his own struggles and resilience, compassion comes naturally. One of his most touching stories involves a fan named Matthew, a 17-year-old battling terminal bone cancer. Matthew, an avid Eminem fan, had only one wish: to meet the rapper who had inspired him through his toughest moments. When Eminem heard about Matthew's wish, he quietly arranged to visit the teen at his home in Michigan. There were no cameras, no media coverage, just Eminem and Matthew spending the day together. They talked about music, life, and shared laughs over video games. Eminem even performed an impromptu rap for Matthew, weaving in details about the teen's courage and strength. After the visit, Matthew's family shared that the day had given him a newfound joy and energy in his final days. Eminem didn't just meet him, Matthew's mother said. He made him feel seen, valued, and loved. Eminem, true to his private nature, never spoke publicly about the visit, letting the gesture speak for itself. Finally, there's Keanu Reeves, whose humility and generosity have made him a beloved figure worldwide. On the set of The Matrix Reloaded, Reeves learned that a crew member was struggling to afford his daughter's medical bills. Without hesitation, Reeves quietly transferred a significant sum of money to cover the expenses. When the crew member tried to thank him, Reeves dismissed it with a simple, "I just wanted to help." Reeves's kindness extends beyond grand gestures. In another instance, he was spotted riding the subway in New York City. When an elderly woman boarded, he immediately stood and offered his seat, a small but telling act of respect. Fans have also shared countless stories of Reeves taking time to chat with strangers, posing for photos, and even waiting in line like everyone else at coffee shops and movie theaters. For Keanu, kindness isn't a performance, it's a way of life. As he once said in an interview, "The simple things, those small moments of connection, are what matter most." These acts of kindness from Trump, Musk, Shaq, Eminem, Keanu, and Johnny Depp remind us of the profound impact one person can have, no matter how big or small the gesture. Which of these stories touched your heart the most? Have you ever experienced or witnessed an act of kindness that changed someone's life? Share your story in the comments below, and let's keep the spirit of compassion alive.